As of July 4th, this new big bill has passed. And as promised, I'm back here educating you on what you need to know as someone planning for retirement and taking this next step into knowing what you need to do to plan for your future. My name is Brandon Moore, managing partner and certified financial planner with InvestWise Financial. Happy here to come together after this crazy holiday weekend. A lot of changes that we'll talk about and things that you need to know as we're looking forward into this year and the next few years. This is, again, a lot of, I think, benefits for retirees in the sense that we're going to cover today. As mentioned in our previous video, a lot of other things in this bill that we're not going to go over that doesn't relate to most of our retired clients. But again, we're going to make sure that you're educated on the most important things today. So what I did was break down our conversation today in a few different sections. So we're going to first start off with some of the retirees and the income, big impacts to how this is going to change. Next, we're going to talk about some more just specifically to people who are working, even part-time in retirement. Move into some business owner and entrepreneur type factors with them. And then lastly, cover some estate planning items there and what's changing, what's not. So listen in and we'll get you updated here as we go along. Now, the first thing that we'll cover is the tax rates themselves. So as you remembered, the current tax laws back from 2017, Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, those are on the docket to be reversed back to the old laws starting in 2026. That is now not going to happen. We are going to extend these current tax cuts, which is a good thing for the consumer, meaning there's less taxes to be paid out of pocket. How much, do you ask? Well, it depends on a couple different factors, but just the tax rates alone are going to be 3 to 4% lower than what they were in 2016 or in what they would have been in 2026. So that's a nice savings there for the general person or retiree. No one's going to say no to having a little bit lower tax rate, right? But one of the biggest changes is the deduction for seniors. So this is actually quite huge in relation to the current standard deduction is quite large on its own, right? If you remember, they've over doubled this point from what they were back in 2016. But if you're over 65, you get an additional $6,000 for single people and $12,000 for married couples that phase out between $75,000 and $175,000 of income. Okay, so that is a really big added extra deduction, meaning money that's not going to be counted on your tax return that can help lower your overall tax bill. And you might ask, well, why did they do it that way? Why did they just, why they specifically focus on people over 65? Well, there were already some extra deductions for people over 65, but now they increase those even greater to actually combat that promise that wasn't fully executed of not taxing Social Security. So Social Security is still taxable as it always has been, but on the federal level. But looking at what that does for majority of the population, this extra deduction for people over 65 actually will not cause as much tax on the Social Security because of that. So you can see it as kind of a middle ground is how I would explain it, but something that is powerful for anyone planning for retirement. What does this mean in numbers, though? With the tax cuts staying at the current the rates, and then, of course, the extra deduction, that can, on average, just giving rough numbers, maybe be at least a couple to a few $1,000s extra in your pocket if you are doing everything correctly. And so, again, I think for many individuals in retirement, a few $1,000s can go a long way, especially for those odds and ends that really add up, helping you protect more of your portfolio, not taking any more significant withdrawals that are necessary, and then also just trying to keep more of your hard-earned money, right? So again, I want to be clear though that this is a temporary tax bill. Okay, this is not permanent by any means. These new laws and new rules that are being enacted are from 2025 to 2028. So after that, we need to consider what our next steps are going to be. What do we think is going to happen politically? What do we think is going to happen from a tax perspective? I'm going to go into more detail on that near the end of our conversation today. Now, moving on from just focusing on just those people later or in their mid-60s to later or in retirement, let's talk about maybe if you are working part-time in retirement or in working part-time in general, preparing for your full retirement. A couple big things passed with the no tax on tips or no tax on overtime. The no tax on tips is uncapped, which is pretty neat. But then also the overtime is capped at $12,500. Still a really powerful thing and can really, help even some, business owners in that aspect of not having the tax on the tips. So again, pretty powerful to maybe help those who are earn a few bucks on the side to keep more of it along the way. Okay. But hopefully if you're in retirement and you're working with us as well, again, many people are going to hopefully say that, well, work is not necessary. It's just for fun. Right. One other thing that I say of this bill, it does apply to probably most people, is we all need generally a vehicle to get around, right? We need something to go from point A to point B. And part of that is, saying that, well, on a auto manufacturer that is assembled in the United States for any vehicle, there's a deduction up to $10,000 a year for interest deduction on auto loans. So again, obviously very dependent on your situation. We don't always recommend auto loans, but again, if someone's in that situation who's going to need to finance a vehicle or make sense to, that is a benefit to doing so. So not an encouragement, but it is a factor when you're planning for your net take home pay and what their tax return will look like. Now, moving on more toward the business owners and entrepreneurs, I covered this greatly, and then nothing really changed too much from our last call or video. But the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, just those benefits alone from that tax bill are a positive thing for business owners, meaning the lower tax rates, better for long-term projections of knowing that this tax rates are going to stick between 2025 and 2028. That's a good feeling because it helps businesses say, okay, here's what we're going to have to plan for. But then also helps business owners plan for if they're trying to do an exit in the next few years. So we work with quite a few clients that are working in the nature of, hey, I'm thinking about moving to the next chapter of my life and retiring. I don't know whether it's to sell my business to a third party or succession to my kids or whatever it might be. But this is a very powerful thing to know that, hey, our tax rates are kind of set in stone for that next few years. Helps people really make moves that they would otherwise be uncertain to do so with changing environment. Now, one really big thing is many business owners have a lot of different ventures, right? Whether it's rental properties or different, state tax consequence that they're responsible for because of the state that they do business in. So again, the SALT tax, state and local property tax, and SALT deductions there that affect that payment was capped at $10,000. Now it's up to $40,000. As mentioned before, this is before anyone that's earning under $500,000. So again, it covers a wide range of income. So again, anyone earn over that, this doesn't really apply to them as much. There's different phase outs there. But again, this does also revert back to this old laws to 10,000 back in 5 years. So we know that this is not permanent either. Okay. So very few things in life are permanent, and this is one as well. And so there's a lot of, really, really powerful things for business owners when they're looking at planning, whether it's exiting or planning for their future business adventures or investments. But again, it's really important to know that there are things that can be taken advantage of here that will help you plan for. I get a lot of questions right now also on legacy planning. What's changing there? Is there going to be more estate taxes? Is there going to be something that's going to throw us off when we're leaving this money behind to our kids? Well, the tax estate exemptions of 11.2 million as well as 22.4 million for married couples, that is staying the same. And again, that is just kind of really consistent to plan for, as mentioned, just for the business owners for that time period. These state tax limits used to be closer to $5 million. And they very well could go back to that at some point in the future. But as of right now, again, we know that that's going to stay the same. So they'll be probably minimize any sort of extra estate planning or extra documents that might need to happen. But every situation is different, especially our business owner. We might need to still talk about making some changes to your plan. Now, finally, let's talk about just kind of the fiscal policy and some trade-offs here. So give you some overall opinions here on these tax laws and changes. These changes don't just come without any sort of negatives, right? At least from a fiscal policy perspective, there is adding to the deficit that we all are concerned about, at least we're told to be concerned about, right? And what that means, it's around 2.8 to 3.4 specifically, reading off my notes here. Over 10 years, it's going to be added to the deficit due to this bill. And so again, what does that mean for the future? So very likely that taxes are still at risk to increase in the future, right? We can't say that's off the table because there's a larger deficit. There's more money that there's going to want to be collected at some point. So we have to be mindful of that potentially happening, right? So we can't just say, oh, taxes are low, I'm just going to continue to do no extra planning right now because they're going to be low and maybe they'll be low forever. Well, I don't want anyone to, bet one way or the other. And I want to be, mindful that we can take advantage of taxes on a year-by-year basis. And so whether that's Roth conversion planning or tax harvesting or estate planning or business exit, whatever that might be, we do not want to let this opportunity go unnoticed. It's something that we continue our plans that we currently had. It's almost a very positive thing for many clients to saying, hey, we were kind of planning for that 2026 change. Now we can kind of continue to reevaluate and might be able to continue doing what we wanted to do for longer. And so it's my job to tell you that let's be smart about this. Let's take advantage of what we have today, but let's not forget that this probably won't last forever. And I'm not going to say that they're going up, taxes are going up in the future because we don't know, but I sure heck know that taxes are still on a fairly steep discount. And we're going to do all we can to help you keep the most money in your pocket now and for your future and for your next generation legacy so that you can use your money the way you hope to use it. And so again, this was the summary I wanted to provide of an overview of these current changes. If you have any questions that come about in relating to your situation, we will be covering them as clients in our fall reviews. If something's coming up, big life changes, let us know. In the meantime, we are happy to talk through those. All of our advisors here at InvestWise Financial are up to date on what's going on and how it will help you have a better plan going forward. So tune in a few weeks here for another session where we'll cover some more changes and insights and maybe get some more clarity here as August approaches with some trade deals and how that will affect things going forward. But let's do some extra tax planning this year and the next few years. And I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday weekend. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.